We carry a lot of things with us throughout life. We carry our years and our choices, bad days and better days, the time we spent in the sun, and, always, regret. Living gets heavy. In the summer I turned 80, I was happy enough. I didn't have much family left, but at least I carried the memory of one with me. Not everybody in the big house could say as much. That's what we call the nursing home, or, assisted living facility. It wasn't so bad, not like I expected when I moved in. Heck, I thought I was about to turn myself into a prisoner when I arrived at Oakhart. But the building was clean and warm, and let in gallons and gallons of sunlight through big windows. The tile floors always smelled like lemon, with only a hint of bleach under that. I was happy, in my own fashion. And then Oliver Gentles showed up. Have you ever run into somebody and immediately know they're the kind of person that, when they walk into a room, you want to walk out? Oliver wasn't a big guy or hard-looking. In fact, he was a bit of a shrimp. But he had a smell of violence on him, like cordite and vanilla. There was blood so far under his fingernails, it must be staining his elbows. I was sure of it. Funny thing was, nobody else seemed to pick up on the bad air around Ollie. That's what he liked to go by, Ollie. And he was a hit. Ollie was a charmer, a champ at canasta, and king of the television room. He had stories and always a smile for the ladies. But a cloud followed Oliver. On some days, literally. The rain started the morning he arrived and continued until the murders. The storms rolled together like puffs from a chain smoker. Curtains of rain lashed those big windows I loved so much, drowning out the sun, burying it in gray thunderheads. That long month reminded me of my time in the war, jammed into a tube of metal with 50 other soldiers 600 feet under the surface of the ocean. That wasn't good. I tried to keep memories of those days locked up like the few war souvenirs I kept in a trunk in my closet. The memories and the souvenirs both seemed better left in the dark. Oakhart began changing in other ways after Ollie arrived. There was a new smell that permeated the halls. I couldn't put a pin on what it was exactly, but it reminded me of dust and rust and decay. The lights in our room seemed a little dimmer, the air a little colder. Margie told me I was imagining things. She was my best bud at Oakhart, and she adored Oliver. Damn near everybody did. Somehow, they didn't see what I saw. Nobody else noticed the way that Oliver's shadow lagged about behind his movements, or how his reflection was never quite identical to the man. I was the only one sensing that the rust smell got worse whenever he was around. And Oliver's smile didn't reach his eyes, stopping short, like a car crashing into a brick wall. I tried convincing myself it was only my imagination running away from me. Margie thought I might be jealous of Oliver, given how popular he was. "He's stealing your thunder, Hank," she told me, softening the statement with a wink. "You used to be the cool old guy here, and now you have to share the spotlight." "Old? Margie, you're 6 years older than I am." "But I look 20 years younger." She smiled and patted my knee before leaving. That was the last time I saw my friend alive. I woke up that night to the sound of the fire alarm. We did drills every 3 months, but I knew immediately this one was real. For one thing, it was 3 in the morning. For another, one of the staff, Joey, popped his panicked face into my doorframe for a moment. "Hank, there's a lockdown," he said, glancing back down the hallway. "Please gather with everybody else in the TV room ASAP, okay?" "Joey, what?" He just shook his head and moved on to the next room. I gathered my old bones up, put on a suit since it seemed like an occasion, and headed to the meeting point. I passed Margie's room along the way. Her door was the only one closed in the hallway, and 2 members of Oakhart's staff stood next to it. "Everything okay, guys?" I asked. Both of them looked nervous. The older one tried to smile. "It's all fine. Just please hurry to the spot. We're in lockdown." I hesitated, but decided not to press the issue. Margie was probably already waiting with the others. I nodded and walked away, wincing as a gust of wind rattled the building. There was a window halfway down the hall. I stopped to look out into the night. It was too dark to see clearly, but I could tell there was a hell of a storm kicking off. Rain and thunder, licks of blue-white lightning connecting sky and earth for a few bright moments, even some hail. The lights flickered. We'd likely be on the backup generator soon enough. I let out a low whistle as another roar of wind cracked a branch from one of the oaks in the yard that gave the nursing home its name. As soon as I got to the television room, I understood something was deeply wrong. Residents stood in clusters, most wearing their robes and pajamas. There was no sign of Margie. A few staff, including the senior supervisor and several nurses, were talking just outside of the room in clipped whispers. I sauntered as close as I could, while still giving them space. It was hard to hear, but I got the gist of the conversation. Lots of "no service," "trouble with the phones," "can't reach the police," and "dead body." The last made me catch my breath. That earned me a glance from one of the nurses. I tried to look harmless and confused, then moved away. A dead body. Margie's closed door. I felt a horrible acid gurgle in my stomach. Had Margie passed? It wasn't uncommon at Oakhart, but if that was the case, why the concerned looks and lockdown? Why reach out to the police? I was working up the right question to ask when I spotted Oliver. He was sitting in one of the armchairs near the fireplace, staring at me. The little man was looking at me like he could see right through me. Right through skin and bone to the thoughts inside of my head. When he noticed me watching, Ollie grinned. The lights flickered again, then went out. There were gasps. A couple of seconds later, the lights came back on. The backup generator must have kicked in. The gasps were replaced by sighs. Somebody even clapped. I never took my eyes off of Oliver. I knew something bad was coming. I felt it. There was more troubling Oakhart than the storm. I was right. As soon as the clapping faded, the backup lights also went dark. Now there were screams. Flashlight beams cut across the room, joined by a handful of battery-powered lanterns and candles. We had light again, but barely. A faint glow left me standing in a room full of shadows. I could see the chair Oliver was sitting in prior to the blackout, but the man himself was gone. A new scream ripped through the room. A dozen flashlights followed the sound, landing on Jody, one of the younger residents. There was a man lying prone at her feet, surrounded by a puddle of blood. He was one of the nurses, and the missing chunk from his skull made it clear he was dead. "Everyone stay calm!" Somebody shouted into a room full of panicking seniors. There was about to be some chaos. I was sure of it, but I wasn't paying attention to the dead body. Oliver was in the process of slipping out of the room into a dark hallway. A stray beam of light passed over Ollie, and I saw his shadow stretch out on the wall behind him. The silhouette wasn't human. It was twisted and horned with limbs so long they dragged on the floor. Oliver turned back and made eye contact with me again. I saw there was a distortion to his face, like something was moving under the skin. He smiled and walked away. I followed, sneaking past the staff, which wasn't difficult since they were focused on the dead man. The hallway grew pitch black. I regretted not bringing a flashlight from my room. My room. That's where we headed. I could tell even in the darkness. I passed Margie's room again and felt my stomach lurch. Her body was inside, slowly cooling on the bed with her throat ripped open. I didn't know how I knew, but there was no doubt in my mind. It was like there was some signal on the rise that night, and my reception was only getting clearer. Oliver was sitting on my bed when I reached my room. There was a light on, though I couldn't see where it was coming from.
Hey, Hank, close the door, will ya?
He asked. I obeyed and closed myself in the room with whatever was inside of Oliver. His face was moving, squirming, and different every time I looked at him. I know what you are, I told him. And I did. I'd seen something like Oliver back in my submarine days after getting back on dry land from months in combat. One of the men came back carrying a darkness with him, in him, and it almost killed the rest of us. Oliver grinned. Now his teeth were shattered and black.
I could tell you saw me, Hank.
It said, breath like a dumpster full of dead rats.
Margie called out for you before I bit her throat out. Just wanted to let you know.
The man in front of me was just a shell. The darkness that he brought into Oakhart, the demon that was free now. Free and hungry. If I didn't stop it, the thing would keep killing and eating and growing. I knew what I had to do, but I wasn't eager to get started. I met one of you before, I said. I think maybe that's why I can see you, why I could sense you from the start.
I would agree. What happened last time?
Oliver asked, eyes flickering between different colors. I stood up and moved to the closet. We had a religious guy on the submarine, a Catholic. He was in seminary school when the war broke out, and he chose to serve his country rather than finish his education. But the man, James, he kept enough of his training to show us what to do. We tied up the sailor with the demon. James began an exorcism right there, deep in that cold, black ocean. Oliver spat.
Priests! Gah!
He was a good man, James. I continued, opening my closet and then pulling out the small, green trunk that held all of my relics from my time in the Navy. A wonderful man, but not that strong as a priest.
Must have been strong enough if the exorcism worked. By the way, which of your friends would you like me to kill first after you?
I ignored the demon and opened the trunk. Thing is, the exorcism failed.
No kidding.
The demon was too strong, too old, too... It doesn't matter. If James couldn't do it, I'm certain I'd fail too if I tried. But James had a backup plan. I pulled out a wooden case from the trunk. Inside was a Colt 1911 pistol, a heavy piece that fired fat 45 caliber shells. It was loaded. I had a hell of a time sneaking that in past the staff when I arrived at Oakhart. Oliver stood up, no longer a short man. He was at least 7 feet tall and growing.
Your plan is to shoot me?
The demon asked, voice buzzing.
I hate to break it to you, Hank, but that won't kill me. Just wanted to let you know, it will only...
I know, I said, pulling the trigger. The moment Oliver's eyes went dead, I felt the presence in my mind. Killing the possessed wasn't an end to the possession, only a transfer. James managed to hold the demon down until we surfaced. Then he jumped into the ocean, sacrificing himself, just like that young priest in the Exorcist movie decades later. I thought maybe I could do the same, but when I tried to put the gun to my temple, my finger refused to pull the trigger. I made it out of the nursing home, at least, right out through a window into the storm. It's been weeks now, and the thing is only getting stronger. Sorry, Margie. I really wish I'd been able to avenge you properly. Sorry, world. I wish I'd been able to do this one last good thing to make up for some of the bad. But even now, it's whispering, chewing, building, taking over. Very soon, I won't be able to keep it down any longer. I just wanted to let you know.